At times, an empath will go through many different situations, and one of the things is possibly illness or something that you feel could take you out of here. It could be grief, it could be financial upset, it could be your children going through, and you don't know what is possible for you, right? And this is the moment when your strength gives out. And it's not because you failed, but because your spirit has carried more than any human should ever hold. So you don't break, you release. And in that release, the spiritual world begins to rearrange itself around you. And your collapse is not punishment. Your near death is not punishment. It is the signal that your next chapter is ready and God is proving who He is in your life. Before God sends restoration, He sends a period of silence. Not emptiness, but silence. The kind that forces everything false to fall away. And this is the kind that exposes every attachment that you never honored and it never honored you. It's preparation because your revelation can be heard over the echoes of the past. I'm going to explain that. Bear with me. Because it comes a point where the heaviness looks final, where you start believing the worst about your fate. This is the moment darkness celebrates too early because heaven uses this exact moment to shift the battlefield. When darkness declares victory, this is when God begins writing a comeback so unexpected. Even your enemies won't understand how you survived. You don't get rescued with a lot of noise. You get rescued quietly through a trace of warmth, a faint glow touching your spirit. Something inside you says, wait, something is changing. And this is not imagination. This is the first sign heaven has stepped back into the room. And long before your thoughts recover, your body reacts to the presence of spiritual intervention. And so your breath deepens, your skin warms, your pulse steadies, and your senses begin returning one at a time. This is your spirit recognizing what your mind forgot. Restoration arrives quietly because it arrives in fullness. And every chosen individual has a voice assigned to them, not by blood, not by history, but by divine appointment. This voice shows up when you are seconds from giving up. It says just enough to remind you of your purpose, not because you needed encouragement, but because your soul needed a witness. No one crosses back alone. When you hear that voice, something inside you cracks open, not from pain now, but from release. The old expectations break. The pressure to be strong dissolves because the identity you carry for survival falls apart. And now your truth will finally be able to breathe. And this breaking is sacred. It is spiritual surgery. Maybe it was something you were told you could not live with, or how did you survive it? And maybe you thought it too was over. But what you didn't see was the fighting happening on your behalf, the praying happening behind your name, the protection that was placed over your path because the assignments were dispatched to secure your survival. You weren't saved at the end, you were protected the entire time. Your rescue was in motion long before you were even in danger. And finally, when this light reaches you fully, when warmth surrounds you, when presence fills the room, you open your eyes and you don't just see the world, you see your purpose returning. And the devil may not accept it. But everything that tried to end you becomes irrelevant. You rise with a depth you didn't have before, a knowing you didn't have before. A strength forms in realms that tried to kill you but couldn't because you didn't survive. You resurrected. And resurrection is proof that heaven refused to let you go. There's a point in every chosen life where the weight becomes too much to carry. But because you have outgrown the battles assigned to your previous season, you may enter something that no one warns you about in that moment, because it doesn't feel like transformation. It feels like collapse. It feels like your spirit giving everything it has. And these are the moments we walk away from things that did not bless us, did not carry us, were not there for us, not knowing what the moment was going to be that heaven was waiting for. So you didn't fall apart because you failed. You fall apart because you reached a doorway to a different life. And so you may get hit with something very hard, very strong. And you feel as though you can't carry this burden or this pain, or you can't run no more, there's no way out. But you will be reaching a doorway to a different life. A life that can't be entered with the burdens you thought you needed to survive. But before you cross, you face a silence so heavy you mistake it for abandonment. And you start asking questions that repeat over and over again, repeat itself back to you with no answers. And you're wondering, God, are you still there? Are you still here? I thought I heard you. I thought I was anointed. Is this really the end of me? Is this how I end? Do I end in the presence of my enemies? Do I end in the way my adversaries wanted me to end? Because it feels so final. And you don't know that heaven is rearranging your surroundings. You don't see the old assignments that once followed you being removed. You don't feel those chains slipping off of the things you were enslaved to, because they fall away quietly, almost like a dust, right? Like it crumbles. It just evaporates like dust. And this is the part of the journey that becomes that sacred stillness. It's not the peaceful kind, but it's the kind that empties you out, the kind that forces everything temporary to detach, the kind when you begin to identify you don't want it anymore, because when you needed it the most, it did not produce. It wasn't capable. So you may not even recognize your own reflection of where you are, because without warning, the dark celebrates too soon. It assumes your silence means surrender, and you're so exhausted. And it's seen, the enemies can see your exhaustion, so they believe you're being defeated. Finally, they actually believe that heaven had a pattern for you that would allow them to see your downfall, your ending, your death, your illness overtake you. You lose your home, you lose your family. Whenever darkness thinks it won, that is when God begins the return. And your return never starts loud. There's a whisper, a softness, a warmth. Your chest rises deeper, your shoulders loosen, your body begins responding to something your mind hasn't caught up with. And you're not imagining, you're not hallucinating. Your spirit is recognizing a presence it has known since before birth. And then the light appears, not the blinding kind, but it's like a soft reminder. It makes your skin remember life again. Maybe you feel a gentle touch, and it's a warmth, it's a power, it's a strength, like a whirlwind in your body. Your life force turning so strongly, saying, I never left you. And so you begin to feel things returning. You get that quiet reassurance. And then it happens, that moment heaven uses to pull chosen people back from the edges they didn't deserve to reach. You hear a voice, not a shout, not a cry, but a voice that carries truth, a voice that knows you, a voice that doesn't need to explain because your spirit recognizes it instantly. It could be a friend. It could be someone you barely noticed before. It could be someone God positioned quietly in your life for this exact moment. But when they speak, it feels like your name is being pulled out of darkness itself, and you're still here. It's letting you know, I got you. You're not done. And something breaks inside you, not from hurt, but from release, from the realization, from the understanding that you were not disappearing because it wasn't your time. You were being retrieved. You weren't ending, you were shedding. You weren't forgotten. You were concealed until it was safe to rise again. And at that moment, you feel the truth entering your system. You were being fought for in realms you could not see. You were being defended in ways you'll never comprehend. And you were being covered by hands that are stronger than anything trying to destroy you. The moment you thought you were dying, the moment you were being restored, that was the moment. The moment you believed you were finished was the moment heaven finished its work on your behalf. And so you rise, not fast, but certainly you do rise. Your eyes that see differently, your breath that carries divine strength, and you rise with a knowing that didn't exist in your old life. You rise not because you recovered, but because you were resurrected. And resurrection is different. Resurrection means you return with wisdom, you return with depth, you return with a quiet authority that doesn't need to prove anything anymore. Resurrection means the darkness that tried to claim you can never approach you the same way again. Your presence changes, your awareness changes, your walk changes, your voice changes. Because you didn't survive, you transformed, and now the world will meet a new version of you. That darkness is no longer qualified to threaten. The world will meet a version of you that was refined in spiritual fire and returned by divine command. The world will meet a version of you that can no longer be touched by the things that once kept you trembling. Your story isn't over. Your story never paused. Your story continued in silence. So you can return with a strength they never saw coming. And this is your awakening and your rebirth. This is your undeniable proof that heaven was holding you, even when you couldn't hold yourself. And now that you're back, every room will feel different. Every connection will feel different. Every assignment will feel different because you're not the person who entered the dark. You're the one who walked back out of it, carrying what darkness couldn't break. So your return is the part your enemies never prepared for. And it's the part heaven always knew you'd reach. And you're not finished, you're beginning. Thank you for visiting my channel. Stay covered, stay conscious, and stay undefeated. I'll see you on the next one.